Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi begins the year in Africa with the conflict in Gaza high on the agenda. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu and this is The Heat. The ongoing visit by Foreign Minister Wang Yi to Egypt, Tunisia, Togo and Cote d'Ivoire continues the 34-year tradition of African countries being the first destinations of the new year. China's support has helped provide African countries with economic opportunities through its Belt and Road Initiative and other programs. But the minister's first stop in Egypt carried with it even more significance as the conflict in Gaza rages on. Adel El Makrouki has more in this report.
Egypt was the first stop in Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's Africa tour. He held talks with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Wang delivered a congratulatory message from Chinese President Xi Jinping to el-Sisi following his re-election last month. The Chinese top diplomat reiterated China's commitment to support Egypt's developmental aspirations.
China and Chinese companies have, through the past 10 years, had their great participation in Egypt's development efforts. We value what China has achieved in development. It is a role model for developing countries for work and political will to progress and develop. We look forward to benefiting from the Chinese model. The fields of cooperation between us are numerous.
Egypt once again reaffirmed its commitment to the One China principle, as well as cooperating with China in resolving regional crises. The war in Gaza topped the talks between the two foreign ministers.
The Palestinian crisis has lasted for 76 years. This is a historic injustice that should not continue any longer. A ceasefire and an end to fighting must be reached as soon as possible. That is an ultimate priority that surpasses any other considerations. Ensuring the flow of aid is an ethical commitment that cannot be postponed. The resolutions regarding the aid to Gaza issued by the Security Council must be implemented.
According to the two foreign ministers, lasting peace in the Middle East must be through the creation of an independent Palestinian state. Wang and Shukri said that the international community must endorse a time plan to reach that goal. Palestine, too, topped the talks with the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul-Ghait. Wang's last official meeting in Cairo also discussed means to expand the China-Arab Cooperation Forum so that it can be a platform to support development in the region.
Wang Yi's visit saw China and Egypt commit to boosting their bilateral relations throughout the next 5 years. The two foreign ministers have signed the executive program that will guide the two countries' comprehensive strategic partnership until 2028. Adel El-Makrouki, CGTN, Cairo.
There's much to talk about. Let's get straight to our panel. Wenping is a senior research fellow with the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of West Asian and African Studies. David Monyae serves as the director of the University of Johannesburg Center for Africa-China Studies. Also with us is Einar Tangen. He's a senior fellow at the Taihe Institute and the founder and chair of Asia Narratives. And Mirette Mabrouk is a senior fellow and the founding director of the Middle East Institute's Egypt and Horn of Africa program. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Mirette, if we look at the current Israeli onslaught in Gaza after those Hamas attacks in October, that featured very highly on Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Egypt. Both these countries, China and Egypt, they back a two-state solution, but the Chinese foreign minister also expressed his concerns over what we are seeing right now, a widening of the conflict in the region. Let's listen to some of what he had to say.
We stressed our concern about the expansion of the conflict in the region. We must mitigate the conflict and give priority to ensuring the safety of navigation in the Red Sea. More important is to begin implementing the two-state solution, to open a political horizon for peace between Palestine and Israel, and for peaceful coexistence between the Palestinian and Israeli peoples. China and Egypt will continue to enhance our coordination and cooperation to find a long-term, comprehensive and just solution to the Palestinian issue.
So, Mirette, how can Egypt and China put their resources together to bring an end to this carnage? What role can they play?
So First of all, thank you for having me. So, first of all, China is a major player on the international stage. It is a member of the Security Council. And as far as Egypt is concerned, it is indispensable to any solution to the current conflict. So I think between the two of them, they are both in a good position to try and smooth matters along for what people hope will possibly be an end to a ceasefire that comes sooner rather than later. The problem is, of course, that Israel appears to have the bit between its teeth, and the State of Israel's largest supporter, most devoted supporter, is the United States, and does not seem to be able to pull Israel back from its current path, which does not appear to be grinding towards a ceasefire anytime soon.
Wenping, China and Egypt, they've established a comprehensive strategic partnership. Both countries, of course, belong to the BRICS group, and China has invested very heavily in Egypt through its Belt and Road initiative. How would you characterize the relationship between these two countries, and where do you see the potential for the most growth in that relationship?
Yes, actually, even 2023, when the Foreign Minister Wang Yi, even the former one, China's Foreign Minister, we visit Africa. Also, Egypt is the first stop to visit. You can see how China-Egypt relationship has been built. This back to 1956. That's exactly when the year 2006, when China host its very first China-African summit in Beijing. That was to celebrating the 50 years anniversary of this China's diplomatic ties with Africa. So started from Egypt. So you can see the relationship goes back to very, very long. And also, I visited Egypt a number of times, like Suez Canal, that economic zone, and also lots of Confucius institutes has been established in different university in Egypt. And also we have infrastructure construction project, and plus like the recently 10th Ramadan, that city, that railway linked to the new capital city in Egypt. Even the new capital city, lots of those construction work has been done by Chinese company like CBD. The tallest building now also erected there. So given all those areas, recently, at the end of last year, China-Egypt also signed this cooperation to the outer space, those industry. China helped Egypt to set out its number 2, that the satellite now into outer space. So many new area now also has been developed. So this is no surprise. Like this time, Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited Egypt, and because this we just mentioned, because the Hamas-Israel conflict has been taking place, now already entering into the 4th month. Yeah. So of course, China-Egypt, we have a lot to share, even in those hard issues in the international stage.
David, of course, Africa features very highly on the Chinese foreign policy agenda. In 2021, the largest exporter of goods to China was South Africa, and that was followed by Angola and then the Democratic Republic of Congo. Nigeria is the biggest importer of Chinese goods. How do you see this trade relationship evolving?
I think the opportunity is there. We have seen in recent months and years that China is opening up its markets to African countries, particularly in the agriculture sector. And that in itself, in line with Africa's free trade area. There are a number of opportunities, new areas in technology and other areas where we're seeing the figures going much higher on an annual basis. And this visit in itself, I think it will go a long way in strengthening and giving assurance, not just to Chinese, but Africans, that the two brother-sister countries are united in all fronts.
Einar, at the China-Africa Leaders Dialogue, which took place in South Africa last August, African leaders thanked China for its assistance in their quest to modernize their economies, to develop their countries. China, of course, has always emphasized a win-win strategy when it comes to its relationships with the countries of Africa, indeed with the countries in the rest of the world as well. How does this strategy play out in Africa? Because there have been some concerns that China imports a great deal of primary goods from Africa and exports a great deal of manufactured goods to the countries of Africa, and the African countries want to change that.
Well, obviously they do, and China is assisting. They've been helping them develop technology. You know, you first have to start with a road. You cannot get your goods to market unless you can physically get there. From that point on, you can start developing your industries, and China's been more than happy to do that. You know, this trip is not just about you know, the Yi's visit. Also, at the same time, you have Vice Premier Li. He will also be visiting 4 countries, including a group of 77. So this shows very clearly that China is interested in a broad range of issues across Africa, and that they are continuing, despite all the things that are happening, Gaza, Red Sea, Horn of Africa, they are continuing to do the work. They'll be hosting the Forum on China-Africa Relations, FOCAC, later this year. They're following up on the leaders' dialogue that was held last August. These are all parts of making sure that, yes, Africa does go forward, and they're listening to African voices, not dictating what they're going to give Africa. So, you know, from this point on, it is very important that the world understands that there's a schism that is developing between not edged on by China, but by actions of the U.S. and other places. They really do feel that China has their back, as opposed to the U.S., which is issuing State Department memos telling their people that they should not advocate for peace. Very, very different type of attitude and idea about how to help Africa.
That's right, Einar. In fact, the United States is making attempts at establishing stronger ties to Africa in response to the growing relationship that China has with the continent. How do you see this dynamic developing? I mean, have there been any results from these U.S. attempts to get stronger ties?
No, we saw Biden, you know, talking about its framework, and he likes to talk about frameworks, but until you fill it in, it doesn't mean anything. China's been at this for 10 years. The Belt and Road Initiative had 152 different countries showing up in China because they believed in what it was doing, because they saw the results. You don't see that with the United States. There's absolutely nothing to show from Joe Biden's framework at this juncture. Just a lot of talk about money to come, kind of like the money that was promised for climate mitigation, the $100 billion a year from 2020 onwards. That has, unfortunately, only a fraction, less than a tenth, has appeared, and most of that has gone to in sweetheart deals to companies associated with the entities who are giving the money, not to Africa, not to the rest of the global South who really need it.
Mirette, Egypt's influence across the Middle East, as well as its location, makes it an important geostrategic partner for China. In fact, China will host the 10th Ministerial Conference of the China-Arab States Cooperation Forum this year. What do you expect to come out of that?
Honestly, at the moment, I think business deals. It's no secret that Egypt is essential for China's Belt and Road Initiative. But there's also the fact that Egypt has been, for a long time, Egypt has wanted to expand its existing relationships. And the relationship with China goes beyond business deals. It's generally speaking, the two countries tend to see eye to eye on both regional and global issues. The business is important, of course. I mean, over, I think, the past 25 years, Chinese imports to Egypt have gone up over 15%, from just 450-something million in 1995 to over 17 billion in 2021, and the same for Egypt. It's gone up from about percent to, it's gone up over 19% over that time. So while the business is important, China and the relationship between Egypt and China is not based solely on business. It's a very, very strategic one. And the joint declaration that you saw on Gaza, I think, came after the meeting that both foreign ministers have. And my understanding is they thrashed out a lot of things. And it is important to present a united front in this particular case. But more importantly, it's important to present alternative geostrategic alliances, so that you have a plurality of power in the region.
Wenping, at last year's China-African Leaders Dialogue, China issued blueprints for its support of Africa's industrialization, for its agricultural modernization, and also for the training of its personnel. Which other African countries do you think are going to benefit most from these programs?
Well, yes, those three initiatives put forward by Chinese President Xi Jinping, I think, not saying goes to just certain of African countries. I think it's faced to all those countries in the African continent. Of course, given those traditional friendship, like especially very strong with Southern Africa countries. You see, we have called the Ninair Governing School, also based in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. So maybe human resources training, you see, will share those governing idea towards this part of Africa, countries. And plus, we also have like a Luban workshop. Luban workshop has been covering all parts of Africa, east, west, central, and the north. So far, I heard already 15 Luban workshop has been established. So this goes to all the countries as well. Like industrialization and agricultural cooperation, this has been doing for a number of years, especially after this BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. This has been, teamed up with African countries. Now many those industrial park and the economic zone, and as well as like agriculturally, that is like agricultural technical demonstration center has been established also widely in all the countries. So we cannot say which country benefited from those three. Actually, all of the countries, as long as they have diplomatic ties with China. So far, only one country in the African continent hasn't established this diplomatic ties with China, that is Swaziland. So all others, I think, can benefit from this initiative. Just like some are more, maybe some are not that much. So, but all engaged together.
David, during his trip, Foreign Minister Wang Yi also called for building an equal and orderly multipolar world. He emphasized all countries should play their due role and enjoy the right to development. And we've been seeing over the past few decades how African countries have begun to assert their independence on the global stage. But that particular message that he took to Africa, an equal and orderly multipolar world, how does that resonate among the countries of the continent?
I think there's that serious way in which Africans are rising up and really demand their space within international, the entire global order. I think we've seen some movements at the level of G20, but that is insufficient. Having Africans in the room at the level of the AU, there are no policies that take place at the AU. I think we want to see more of countries such as Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, being members of the G20. But moving from G20, I think other centers of power, particularly United Nations, needs to really be open and democratized and ensure that Africans alongside Latin America and some parts of Asia have a fair share. As it stands, I think we have overrepresentation of Europe, whether it's in G20 or the United Nations Security Council. I think we want to see more of Africa, that the post-1945 world order, it's increasingly becoming illegitimate in the sense that only few countries dictate to the poor nations, And therefore, I think what Africa is doing through the AU and close relationship with strategic partners such as China is to open up space to have a world order of equality, a world order that represents and see Africa as a pillar of power in its own right, instead of being handed power by other role players outside the continent.
Mirette, I want to get back to the crisis in Gaza and how it's impacting not just the region, but having a global impact as well. The Chinese foreign minister called for an end to what he called the harassment of civilian vessels in the Red Sea. He also noted that the United Nations Security Council has never authorized the use of force against Yemen. And of course, this is a very important trade route. It's one of the most important trade routes for traffic going from Asia to Europe and the other way as well. Do you see this crisis escalating, the widening of this conflict in the weeks and months ahead?
So I think there's a very, very real danger of it escalating. From day one with the Gaza conflict, I think the fear was that it would spill over the borders. And policymakers were advised over and over again that it was likely to spill over the borders, and of course it has. It has given the Houthis an excuse to attack ships in the Gulf. It has given Iran an opportunity to allegedly nudge the Houthis along in this. Now, the problem is, as you pointed out, this is a major waterway. And I actually think that this may be the reason why the Gaza conflict is brought to a close, because I do think that countries that were willing perhaps to stand aside and not get involved in the incredible suffering that is happening in Gaza are going to be less willing to stand aside and watch their shipping routes and their trade be disrupted. Because of course, if you can't use the Red Sea, if you cannot use the Suez Canal, you have to use the Cape of Good Hope, which adds 10 days of travel, and it is significantly more dangerous. So you will see delays in the global supply chain. You will see delays in shipping. You will see danger because there is likely to be more conflict in the sea, and at this stage, apparently, it doesn't really matter that the UN has not sanctioned these attacks. They are going to continue to happen. And if everyone wants to pull out, if the US and the United Kingdom and everyone else does not want to get involved in an escalating conflict in the region, then the crisis in Gaza needs to be handled, needs to be brought to a close.
Wenping, you've said that Wang Yi's visit to Egypt will further align China's Belt and Road Initiative with Egypt's 2030 Development Initiative. Elaborate on that for us.
Yes, we all know now Egypt just wrapped up this president election. So President Sisi now got a new term, and quickly, the Egypt put forward this new development plan, like how many tourists were brought back to Egypt and how many foreign investment were going to be attracted to Egypt. So with all those 2030 vision, now needs a lot of foreign investment, needs Chinese tourists, of course, other countries' tourists all back to Egypt. So now Egypt is, very difficult for, to pour in those FDI, and also struggling with those high rising inflation. So economic situation is not that good. So with this new, presidency coming from Sisi, and also with this new member getting into a BRICS, this club, I think this China, of course, is very important a player, not only in BRICS, this also is in with the BRI. This is a very big push, and with a lot of investment already getting Egypt and also getting other countries in the continent. So I think that offer a new momentum to further consolidate China and Egypt together. I mentioned like Suez Canal It's very important, access linking Mediterranean Sea and also Red Sea and all the way with the East, this Pacific countries there. So China also serving as a very good, very important this customer gone through this Suez Canal, and plus we have this Suez economic this zone based in Egypt. This also offer industrial development base. So given all those already our good foundation built on in the past decades, nowadays, we need to open a new chapter to further consolidate China-Egypt, this bilateral, we call comprehensive strategic partnership.
And He Wenping, China has emphasized people-to-people contacts as part of its foreign policy outreach. How do you see that work in Africa?
Oh yes, people to people, this contact serving as a public supporting base for all those economic cooperation, Belt and Road Initiative, how to synergy with Africans, this 2063 agenda given by the AU. So actually, I think people to people is not only saying, while we invite lots of African students, more and more come to China to study, or like Chinese tourists goes to Africa to have a tour, those trip. I think also now develop to tool, we share those development idea and how to improve those governance, those level. Given those times, even myself, personally involved with those human resources training, those courses. I also share with our audience from Africa, different countries, like how China's this reform and opening up this journey, like the past 40 years, China developed itself from a poor, backward country, now becoming a second biggest economy, and we have been successfully make a lot of people out of poverty. So those development experiences also can be shared with our African counterparts. I think this is also a kind of people-to-people communication.
Right.
Not only tourism, not only just the students, not only just the arts performance or movie like a theater. So now we can develop it more contents in.
Okay, and that is where we have to leave it. Thank you to all of you for being with us. And that's it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C.